So, hello everyone. Welcome to our damp philosophy damp. Now, I'd like you to know some things before you start. Maybe by now, some of you would already started writing, but still, I would like to kind of have some things to tell you so that you can uh, get the most of the utility, utilization of this course for your betterment of answer writing and all that. Now, see, first and foremost, you need to understand one thing. What is the basic purpose? What is the intention? What is the objective with which we are coming up with this course? Obviously, this is not the first time. We have been doing it for last 4 years. So, daily answer writing and mentorship. So, the basic expected situation or eligibility for that matter, I would say, is this, that you would have gone through at least once whole of the syllabus. You know the things, you know the topics broadly. You may not have revised many times, but at least you have gone through some foundation, or you have done on your own, whichever way, but you will know the stuff on an average, basically basic concepts, understanding and all. Because in the damp lectures, we are not going to discuss each and every detailed concept. Basically, what we are going to discuss is how to write that answer, what are the points that are expected here, and if there is some nuance, this thing, certainly I will discuss that time. So for first and foremost is the basic thing is done. You have gone through some basic understanding of philosophy, that is Indian, Western, socio-political, religion, everything. Number one. Number two, now that is October, November, December, January for that matter, is the most apt time for optional preparation, as you might already know. So how to make use of this particular thing best is to do answer writing. It's more like reverse preparation. That is, you write the answer. Obviously, answer may not be very good. If it is very good, it is more than required. But if it is not, then through my discussion and later on, obviously, you will also go back and revisit and reevaluate your own this thing, that what points could have been there, what points could have been added to this. So when it comes to answer, okay, number one is obviously understanding. Now, when you understand something, then demand of the question becomes easy for you to do. Then structuring. Okay, then time management, and obviously the content. Content is basically about remembering. Remember. Okay. So structuring includes, whatever diagrams and introduction and main body, point wise, subheadings, push any diagram that you want to write. कोई भी ऐसी चीज है, if anything you want to add to it, like that, how to make it precise. Time management, very, very important. As you know, for 10 marker, you have 7 minutes. For 15 marker, you have around 11 minutes. And for 20 marker, you have 14 minutes. This has to be followed for sake of your preparation. Okay. So I hope you follow this, because this is very, very important. Okay. So this is the most important thing, answer writing. And that too, understanding, structuring, time management, and remembering the content. That is the basic purpose why we are doing this, right? Now, if you practice particular answer, if you, for example, you write answer on Charvak or Jainism or Strawson or Wittgenstein, automatically what happens, it helps you to remember it, makes your time management better and better. It helps you in structuring. It obviously helps you in understanding of that topic. Because most of the time what we think, writing answer is like retrieval of the data, that you remembered something and you're putting on the paper. But there is also, mind is not that simple. So more you retrieve, more it is easy for you to remember for the next time retrieval. For the next retrieval, it becomes easy. That is the reason we are doing this. So why I'm saying this, because this is very obvious, still I'm saying this because you should keep these things in mind while writing answer. That I'm writing so that obviously answer writing practice, structuring, time management, and obviously, if not 100%, but 60%, 70%, 80% content will be touched upon by the answer itself, right? So this particular thing has to be kept in mind. Okay. Then how broadly you know how it is going to be. Initially, we only used to have even all other optionals and other things that we have done programs. Everybody has only two questions, one for writing and one for, writing and evaluation, and second is for practice. What I thought that philosophy, because it is very, very answer writing oriented, as in, even if you do a lot of answer writing after your basics, that itself does a lot of revision, because the similar questions are going to get repeated, the similar things are going to get required to be written. In philosophy there is no much of a current affairs per se, except maybe a little bit here and there in paper 2. So I thought, let's make it bigger. So I did it like this. So 2 answers you will be writing, of which one will be PYQ. Now again, why PYQ? If any of you would have gone through or taken the PYQ seriously or spent some time with PYQs, you would have realized that a lot of PYQs get repeated as it is, literally as it is. There are some PYQs that have got repeated 4, 5, 6 times in last 15 years. So if you write all the PYQs, if not all, maximum possible PYQs through this, ideally it is expected that you write PYQs other than our course also, for sake of writing it. So what will happen? Almost all the syllabus is indirectly getting covered. That's why we have done this 2-2 thing. Okay, so I know it will be little bit rigorous for you, but please do that. Okay, rest all technical issues, logistical issues, I think you are already done with. 12 within like 12 o'clock there will be question, then next day 12 o'clock afternoon you are you have a window to submit, and then next kind of 24 hours you'll get the evaluation and the video. Basically that's the logistical thing. If you have any doubt, you can. And yes, if you have any doubt, otherwise also, as I had mentioned you, that you can contact me, you can WhatsApp me, and once a week, mostly Sunday or whichever day it is okay for you, we'll have some Zoom session. If you want to have Zoom session immediately, please, without hesitation, just put it on the group that, can we have Zoom session earliest? Because initially, maybe you'd like to ask some questions, because now this is a one-way communication. So there will be one Zoom session soon, like next 2-3 days, I'm thinking, because maybe Sunday is also coming. And if not, Friday, whichever possible way, we'll do it. Okay, so that will be helpful for you, because there will be initial hiccups that you will be having and would like to ask some things to me. Okay, so Zoom sessions, and then onwards, because what happens is after first 3-4 weeks, then generally people do not have many questions. If then, but still, if you have any questions, you can contact me. Okay, so this is the basic purpose. Okay, one more thing I'd like to tell you. How should you go with the things? Like 10-mark question, you have 2 pages to write. Obviously, there will be question here. Then there will be some space for introduction. Then there will be some subheadings, and there will be some criticism or critical evaluation or critical points, and then there will be conclusion. Obviously, you have to try to stick to 150 words for 10 marker, and obviously for 10 marker it is 7 minutes and 150 words. Now I generally suggest that even if you are in the starting, if you're taking 8 minutes, sometimes 9 minutes also, it is okay. But to start off with, you should resolve to follow the time limit. Okay. It's not that I have just decided to write whenever I feel and I'm writing for 15 minutes. That should not happen. The sense of urgency should be there. Maybe there is a little spillover of the time to 1 or 2 minutes. Pardoned, acceptable, excused to start off with now because we are in the beginning. But do not give complete disregard to time that I'm just reading the question and whatever I'm thinking, whatever amount of time I'll write. That is not a good idea. Okay. So if you have 7 minutes, generally 1 minute plus 6 minutes. That's what I generally suggest, and it helps also students to formulate the question. What do you do in the 1 minute? You first do this. What would be like? What is the demand of the question? What is the demand of the question? Then what are the subheadings? Like how you are going to subdivide the question, and then possibly intro if you are able to articulate even before writing. Think these three things can be done in 1 minute. Not a big issue. Once you read the question, like you read the question once or twice, then think what is the demand of the question, what exactly is the question asking. And demand includes, as I already mentioned, structural demand and content demand. So main demand is content demand, as you already know. What are the points? But it also has some structural demand, as in whatever is asked, exactly that, and in that direction only you have to write. You cannot just keep on writing all the points that you know regarding that topic, which the question is asking you to do. So this subheading means generally UPSC also makes it very clear that it's not very difficult to divide the question because there are always two aspects. Now these two is apart from criticism. Okay, apart from criticism, that depends on the question. This is not hard and fast rule, but this is like a guiding or helping tool for you. Okay, it's not that UPSC has asked us to do it, but suddenly when you see the question you don't know what to do. Okay, let's come up with what can be introduction. Let's divide the demand of the question on the basis of its requirement in the subheadings. Under the subheadings there might be, you can write points. If you want to write paragraphs also, you can write paragraphs. Don't just write continuously, without breaking it, without making points, without paragraphing. That you should not be doing, because then it looks like an essay. That is not good, because it's just 10 marks. 150 words, I can tell you, is very, very small amount of like small number of words that you have. Very little number of words that you have. Word limit is very short. 150 words, it's not very easy. If your preparation is very good, it is all the more difficult because you don't know what to cut then. That's what the session is. That's what this practice is. Okay. So my suggestion is always go for this 1 minute, 6 minute rule. You can have 30 seconds and 6.5 minutes, or you can have sometimes 1 minute, 30 seconds and 5 minutes, 30 seconds, whatever way. And as I said initially, you can have a little bit spillover here and there. Okay. Any related question with respect to this time management, your experience, whatever, if you have, please reserve them. Okay. Always make sure there is some small notebook or some notepad or something where you keep mentioning whatever doubts you have to ask me whenever we have Zoom session. Okay. If you think that particular doubt can be cleared through message, you can WhatsApp me. But best is whenever we have Zoom call, you just ask me personally straight away, speak it out, and then we can discuss it out. Okay. So yes, and for 15 marker, this 2 becomes 3. For 20 markers, this 2 becomes 4. Subheadings, because subdivision, you might ask why subdivision is required, because then what happens? You do not end up writing too much about one point and then realize at the end that I could not write the important point. I kept on writing only one aspect and then I missed the other. That's why in your picture memory, you should be able to picturize like this without any kind of deviation. Maybe sometimes your second subheading will be here. That depends on the content, because it depends on the question also. Because not Every question has very balanced 50-50% points. Sometimes this point is only small, the other point is bigger, whatever. But segregation, fair segregation of the answer is very much required. Too much segregation is also not good, because then it looks like all spread here and there without any coherence. Okay. Now, yes, we have 5 days a week. You know that. Saturday, Sunday. Yes, one more thing. With respect to preparation, many people have this doubt. Okay. That it becomes very fast, because initially Charvak, Jainism, Buddhism becomes little easy. Later on, what happens? 2 days we have 2-3 days we have Kant, then suddenly Hegel will start, then suddenly Russell will start. So what you should be doing is, you should, and you might experience this, that today you wrote Charvak, for example, today is Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever, you wrote Charvak, tomorrow there is Jainism or Jaina. So expected thing is this, that you should use these Saturdays and Sundays for your revision of the next whole week. That is, generally in a week, will not be covering more than two. Generally, okay, two thinkers, maybe a little bit third, maximum three, but mostly two. So what you should be doing, Saturday, Sunday, you should revisit all the two, whole syllabus, I would say, whole syllabus. Okay. And then, then you kind of are very, at least primarily ready for the answer. Then obviously you can do this thing also for some. I'm not suggesting it to all, but if you want, is like you read the question, then again go back and read the relevant syllabus, and then come back and write the answer. Only one rule. Number one, it should not be open book, obviously. Number two, it should be within the time frame. Because I have my one equation. Okay. If you are writing answer minus time limit is equal to notes, then it is no more answer. Try to understand what I'm saying. It's a very different thing, because once you go for the actual mains examination, however rich your notes are, unless you have practiced this time limit, because now this daily answer writing is certainly for understanding the concepts, enriching one by one. Okay. Your answers, your aspects, like, some questions of Kshanikvad you are not able to write properly. Some questions on Dehatmad you're able to write properly, or some other question comes on a concept of substance by Leibniz. Suddenly, that aspect is very weak. So individual aspects are getting brushed up. So it's like a net practice, where each and every shot, if you know the cricket terminology, each and every shot you played 3-4 times, you visit again, go back again, see whether you've gone wrong or right. Test series is different. Test series is like a tournament where you cannot learn. You have to just express whatever you learned. That's why DAMP is very important. That's why this is the time for the DAMP. In June, July, obviously test series, because there time management becomes more important. Because see, here managing time is only about 7 minutes. Okay. So there is no time for you to take pressure. But when you are writing the same thing for 3 hours, after 1.5 hours, there will be a time when you will be very different state of mind. So that practice is different. But here, what we are expecting, we are doing this. Obviously, we are enriching one by one question, means we are enriching the content, quality, structuring, practice, everything. And obviously, with respect to the full length test, obviously at the end of the course, there will be proper full length tests. Okay, paper 1 full 3 hours, paper 2 full 3 hours, like that. So there will be that closure like that, and that day is like done. Now you're back to prelims fully. Philosophy is like, you can say very clearly and proudly that my philosophy is done. That is the basic purpose. That's why we are by January end, or maybe I think 1 week here and there, you will be done with your philosophy, revisited all the aspects at least once or twice, because as I said, Saturday, Sunday, if you utilize more, then the whole week again you are revisiting, because there are at least 2 questions for every topic on an average, barring very small topics. 2 questions, 2 days basically, and 4 questions per day. So that is more than enough. Just imagine you are writing 20 questions per week. Now 20 questions per week means, normally how many questions you write in one exam? You write, if you see the 10 markers, 10 markers in an exam you write, and 9 other questions, 15 15 20, 15 15 20, 15 15 20, like that you write. So almost one whole test you are writing every week. Only thing is, you are writing it daily, one by one, because you get a chance. Another thing, now we have 4 questions. So for example, we have 28 minutes. If all the questions are 10 marker, 7. I'm not saying that all the 4 questions should be written in stretch of 28 minutes. Not required. I'm not expecting that thing from you. Okay, that is not required. You write one question, take your time, then write another question, take your time, then write third question. It's all okay. Only thing is, while writing, it should be in 7 minutes, 11 minutes, or 14 minutes, according to its marks. Right? That is very, very important, because I can tell you it helps a lot, because I could see at least there are 2 students who were otherwise also students. Last time also they had joined DAMP with me. I checked. Then this time also they have joined. That means at least from these 2 students, and that happened last time also, there must be something. And there are those who there is one student who gave interview twice. She also had enrolled last time. She could not qualify because of her essay and other things. So DAMP, if you utilize it sincerely, it helps a lot. I can already tell you, it is going to be very rigorous. It is not going to be very smooth, like what happens in foundation. You go, sit, and discuss, listen. Now it's a next advanced stage. And let me also tell this to you, that it is rigorous for me also, because it's a daily thing, daily involvement. Every day I have to do something. Like, we have to, like, come up, prepare for the lectures, kind of check the answers. And with respect to our philosophy, because philosophy, as you know, philosophy optional always has a smaller batches. So all the questions are checked by myself, not some other person. So that also I always make sure that I only check the paper. So I'm expecting a lot of dedication from you. Again, I'm telling you, it might be very, very rigorous, but there is no, there should not be any confusion. There should not be any laid back approach from your side, because I can tell you, this 4 months, 3 months, 4 months, whatever, 3.5 months are very crucial for your optional. Very, very crucial. And how much time would you require to give? Maybe 2-3 hours per day is more than enough for all the 4 questions. Apart from Saturday, Sunday also, 3-4 hours, more than 3 hours is enough actually, including writing, including going back and checking, including evaluating yourself, what should have been the answer. Even before you get checked copy from me, or even if you receive the videos, you can yourself also go back to the CD Sharma or Datta Chatterjee or your notes and check it. Okay. So this, and why I'm saying this, I'll tell you, this happens with many. If you do not prepare optional very clearly, thoroughly, then the day you get a positive result of your prelims, that day you will be cursing yourself like anything, because now you are ready for you got the opportunity, but you are perhaps not ready, perhaps. And all the more important for philosophy, because there is nothing else in philosophy. You know the things, you know the whole books. There is a boundary Within that only all the questions are going to come, barring one or two questions here and there, which every year UPSC gives some out of syllabus or out of notes, I should say, out of our all note. I'm talking about all these classes, everybody's notes, even for that matter, CD Sharma and the books that we, YMC and others. So it comes out of that, but it's okay. It's only one question. Let's not bother about it now. But all other questions, all 99% questions are going to be almost fixed. We know, okay, they are going to ask about substance of Spinoza. They are going to ask about, Brahma and Maya, or, Adhyasa and stuff. Fix, they know. Saptanupapatti ho, Arthapatti. They are going to ask about these things. Charvaki, epistemology, metaphysics, transcendental, rejection of transcendental entities, Dehatmavad, okay, Bhuta Chaitanyavad, and all that. So certainly they are going to ask about this. So you have to make use of philosophy, you having philosophy as your optional, because then things are already very clear to us. So why not to use it? Okay. So I think that's all I wanted to tell you with respect to how you can go about it and should go about it. In spite of this, also, if you have some doubt, you can, as I already mentioned, you can contact me, and we will also meet in our Zoom sessions. So you can express yourself whatever way you want to. Let us discuss this question now. What is this question saying? Are the Chavaks consistent when they hold that inference is not a source of knowledge? Discuss. Now, this is 2019 PYQ. Okay. So, question is about are the Charvaks consistent when they hold that inference is not a source of knowledge. Discuss. 10 mark. Now, yes, many would have this doubt also. So this discuss, comment, analyze. Obviously, everything has its own meaning, but discuss and comment is very general. Discuss, comment, elaborate, explain. There is no much to difference. You have to explain in the same way. Especially in philosophy, much of a difference doesn't make here. Obviously, if it is critically analyze, evaluate, then obviously criticism will be given more importance. That's the only thing. Anyway, we will be writing criticism here. Okay? Now, number 1. You already know. Demand, subheadings, intro. May not be conclusion, but at least till intro in 1 minute. Think, not write, think. Right? So you have 10 marker means you have 150 words or 2 pages. Right? Question is over. So introduction, then subheadings, then criticism, and then obviously conclusion. You do not have more space than this. Okay. Are Charvakas consistent when they hold that inference is not valid source of knowledge? Discuss. So basically, they are asking question whether Charvakas are consistent or not. That is obviously your conclusion, not your opinion, but obviously it will be your conclusion somewhere here. Okay. And we already know that Charvakas are not consistent, but that's okay. Why they are not consistent is what we have to bring out. So basically, demand, what is the demand of the question? Charvaka's rejection of inference. Okay, so basically Charvaka reject inference, Charvaka's rejection of inference, and then you have to show in what way it is inconsistent. Or if you think it is consistent, then it is. So, number one demand is Charvaka's rejection of inference. So, how would you start it? Charvaka, need not mention Charvak also. If you do not have time, you can straight away rejection of inference. Okay, and then consistency test. You can use any this thing, consistent or not. Charvaka's consistency, any subheading. As long as the moment somebody reads, it is. Now here, very important point. Because we are checking consistency, we would have already accommodated the criticism. Because how would you otherwise say it is inconsistent with somebody's criticism? So in this particular question, there is no need of criticism. Because why do we write criticism? Because when you write something, you have to write it 360 degree. Like for example, question comes, write short note on the concept of substance given by Spinoza. So obviously what will happen? You have to write what this Spinoza, unity of all, substance is static, substance is God, substance is natura, naturata, natura, naturans, so whatever Spinoza wants to say. Then you have to have 360 degree means some feedback from some other person should also be included so that the holistic approach of that concept is brought in. That's the reason we have to mention criticism in the paper answer. Here, we are already checking consistency test, means we will be bringing the negative aspects. No need to write. Okay. So, rejection of inference. So, okay. So you understood the demand, you deciphered the subheadings. Then what would be introduction? Now, as long as Charvaka is concerned, and with respect to their epistemology and everything, you already have an idea, because it's a very easy thing. That's why I'm saying. Otherwise, still, how would you write the introduction? So, Charvaka is materialistic, positivistic school. If you want to write skeptic also. Okay, according to Charvaka epistemology, or you can mention like this if you want to mention very briefly. They hold perception as the only praman and reject all other praman. Okay, rejection of inference is the core of their epistemological stand, because next is going to be rejection of inference. So last statement should be about that. Okay, so rejection of inference becomes very core for them. Now, how do they reject inference? Number one, whatever is sense and object contact can only be valid. That's their basic premise. Pratyaksham evam pramanam. Pratyaksha is the only praman. So, sense and object contact is the only test of validity. So, inference gets rejected. Second, inference rejected because it is a guesswork, or rather they would say it's a leap in the dark. There is no basis according to them. Third, they reject inference, saying it is not infallible. Okay, or it is not, or they use this term, truth is not the unfailing character of inference. Truth is not the unfailing character of inference. That's what Charvak says. Basically means inference may go wrong. Inference do go wrong. Okay. Then rejection of Vyapti can be a subheading. Now, there will be some points here. Okay. By the way, you might think that I do not have space, but that is only because this is a board and I'm writing a little bigger. Otherwise, you will think that I already exhausted the space. How would I write the points? That is just indicative. Okay. Because otherwise, proportionate space size of this thing will be this bug. Okay. It's just an indicative. Whatever I'm writing is within these, what is the word limit? If you write, you'll realize.
Okay, rejection of Vyapti. Now, Vyapti is here, Vyapti is considered as nerve of inference. So, rejection of Vyapti will reject the inference. Okay, second, Charvaka rejects Vyapti because they reject causation. Okay, and they reject causation as this thing. But other thing is, you cannot perceive all the cases of universal concomitance. Now, you no need to define Vyapti here as such because you don't have space, because we are not writing Nyayaka answer in which you are required to define. So otherwise you'll get a lot of, if you start writing that, then it will be more than 150 words. So Vyapti, that is universal concomitance, cannot be established on the basis of, because we cannot know all the cases of present times, let alone the past and the future. Okay, for example, smoke and fire, we cannot know the cases of previous smoke and fire. And so unless you know them, how can you conclude them? So Vyapti is rejected. Past, present, future cases. Second, Vyapti also cannot be established on the basis of Samanya Lakshan, that is smokeness, fireness. Why? Because there is nothing called Samanya Lakshan. It is just a generalization. It has, because you cannot perceive smokeness and fireness. Okay. Third, now, if you are trying to establish Vyapti by other inference, then it becomes infinite regress. You know the point, because trying to establish Vyapti through other inference, trying to establish Vyapti through other testimony for that matter. Next point will be trying to establish Vyapti through testimony is not possible. Why? Because testimony itself is rejected, number one. Number two, testimony interpretation itself is a process of inference only, nothing else. Okay. So that. Now I think these many points, there might be 1 or 2 points, smaller points, but I think 4 or 5 points are enough generally. Then consistency test. Obviously, number one, if inference goes wrong, then perception also goes wrong. If inference goes wrong, then perception also goes wrong. So this is one in inconsistency. Second, according to Jaina, the process of perception is nothing but process of inference. If you remember Jainism a little bit, Smriti and this thing, Mati and Shruta. So in the Mati thing, if you see the whole explanation, there are 3-4 processes where, some sound is there, then there is a doubt, avaya and spuha and all that. That whole process means, no need to write whole process. The whole process means Jainism says so-called perception is also inference, because, and many idealists also will say that what you see is what your mind will tell you, or whatever image is being built. You cannot guarantee that there is something outside. And even if you do, it is not direct experience of chair. It is experience of idea of chair, and through that you infer that there is chair. Like if you see some Buddhist Bahya Anumevad also, the Sautrantika school, Bahya Anumevad, that is the same logic, that you see something means it is actually through inference. But that you no need to require right here. Just Jainism mentioned this. Okay, consistency, sorry. One is, if one is wrong, the other is also wrong. This thing. Then, Nyaya, what will Nyaya say? See, if you reject inference, then practical life becomes very difficult. Practical life becomes very difficult. And for rejecting inference, now here there is a catch. The next question statement can be directly statement here. That is, the rejection of inference is nothing but the process of inference only. Okay. So rejection of inference, the process is process of inference itself. So how can you reject inference? Okay. So you write the arguments that they give for inference. You write the arguments to kind of deflate that. Okay. And then you write obviously you have to conclude, because are question is, are the Charvakas? Okay, that means they are asking you the question. So yes, on the basis of the argument, or you can straight away say the process of rejection of inference by Charvak, they are not consistent with themselves. That can be seen from the above this thing. You don't need to write that, but Charvakas are not consistent. They have a severe inconsistency in holding that inference is not valid source of knowledge. Because then last point, that they'll stop, they'll rejection of inference is equal to sorry, a rejection to think itself, which is obviously not correct. And still, last line, because you concluded that is inconsistent, still last line, it is better you to write that, however, the contribution or the through the process of critical and skeptical approach, okay, or Charvakas critical, because of the Charvakas critical and skeptical approach, Charvakas are very fairly can be credited with saving Indian philosophy from dogmatism. Okay, this is one way of, just to add flavor to the question. Main thing is, obviously you said that it is inconsistent. It can be clearly seen, because then without inference, nothing, no process of knowledge can happen, including the discussion and thinking. However, this critical approach, skeptical approach that Charvaka had, okay, you can write in a different way, many different ways. This critical approach or skeptical approach Charvaka had always gave the always mentioned, always provided the kind of questioning habit to the Indian philosophical mind, or they obviously they saved Indian philosophy from dogmatism. They also made people aware about superstitions and blind rituals, anything, because they are asking questions for everything. So their habit of asking questions has been contributed to Indian philosophy and the minds of people, and encouraging them to question. Okay, so it's like bringing the superiority, bringing the importance of the questioning. That is also a very good point. Okay, so that's how this question will, or can be, or should be answered. Let us see the next question. Charvaka's view that perception is valid and inference is invalid itself is a result of inference. Now, this question was similar. I'm not going to write the question now because it will take unnecessary time. Okay. So, introduction, some subheading, maybe I'll write it here now. Then, criticism, and then obviously conclusion. This question is also 10 marker. Okay. Now, Charvaka's view that perception is valid and inference is invalid is itself a result of inference. Comment. Now, here, most important thing is the demand of the question. You should never miss the demand of the question. What is the question saying? Is the question is asking you to comment on that statement. Obviously, prima facie, it's a true statement. We know that. This is the statement that Jainism and Nyayikas in the form of criticism leveled against Charvak. Why it is so? Because there is some epistemological stand that Charvak has, that is in the form of perception is the only pramana, inference is rejected. And they give some argument for this. Now, here, the whole argument that we have seen in the previous question or other question, that is about consistency of Charvak, you might have heard or seen. So that particular question, that all those arguments, all those points are not necessarily should be written here. Obviously, it's a similar tone, but not all points. Okay. So, Charvaka's view that perception is valid and inference is invalid is a result of inference. Now, again, this question also, the statement itself is a critical statement. The statement itself is a critical statement. So again, there would not be need of specific critical point as such. Okay. So, first of all, generally is Charvaka epistemology, because both the aspects, which includes this thing. And now here, straight away critical point, because that is the main point of the question. That is, okay, rejection of inference itself is inference. And you have to prove in what way it is. Okay. So epistemologically, and then you know what would be the kind of introduction. Same Charvaka epistemology basis itself, the whole superstructure of Charvaka metaphysics and all other philosophy basis on one epistemological tenet. That is what is the epistemological tenet on which every part of the Charvaka's philosophy basis? Pratyaksham evam pramanam. Okay, pratyaksha is the only term. Perception, okay, is the only praman. But here, now very interesting, because we are again going to write many points here. So you introduce in a very general way. This happens with Charvak, by the way, because there is no much syllabus, very specific. All the time you have to go back to perception and the matter. Perception is the only reality, perception is the only praman, matter is the only reality, like that. So, Charvaka, the materialistic and critical school or skeptical school of Indian philosophy has a unique feature wherein all other pramanas other than perception are rejected by Charvaka as the valid source of knowledge. Okay, this results into a peculiar epistemological stand of Charvak. Now, because there is subheading, your last statement should be peculiar epistemological stand of Charvak. Okay, and then you write Charvak epistemology. Perception is valid because sense and organ contact. Inference is invalid because, first of all, it is not sense and organ contact, and it is leap in the dark. Okay. Third, okay, inference rejected because Vyapti rejected. Okay, so now this is not a very important part of the answer. These 3 points are enough, general points. You don't need to write all the details here. Okay, that Vyapti, on what basis, the points that we had seen in our previous questions, that should not be there, that Vyapti is rejected, then Vyapti, summon election also rejected, Vyapti is rejected on the basis of past, present, future, Vyapti is rejected on the basis of not perceived, Vyapti is rejected on the basis of testimony also rejected, like that. Or Vyapti cannot be also based on the inference, because then it becomes infinite. These things are not required here. Okay. Then rejection of inference. This is very important, because only 3 points are written here. Main points are to be written in this part. Okay. Again, I'm saying if you want to write point wise, right? Otherwise, you can write paragraph wise. But point becomes this habit of writing point wise is always good, because then it kind of helps you also to channelize things. Rejection of inference as inference itself. Now, the most important argument that should be, according to Charvak, here, okay, according to Charvak, if the source of knowledge goes wrong, then it is invalid. Okay, the pramana, which is fallible or which goes wrong, is invalid. Inference goes invalid. Okay, inference, any praman which is not basically any source of valid knowledge, if it is not giving right results, then it is invalid. Inference does not give right results, so inference is invalid. That's what Charvak says. Because, for example, if there is only one case of one case that is violative of Vyapti, inference is not established. If inference is not established, then it is invalid. Okay, so inference is invalid. This process itself is inference. Okay, so okay, so you can say like this: source of knowledge, okay, going wrong is not praman. Okay, or you can write this. It's just the argument you have to create. Pramana is valid source of knowledge. Inference is not a valid source of knowledge. So inference is not valid praman. Okay, or for that matter, perception. Perception goes right. Okay, and anything that goes right is valid. So perception is valid. Opposite is inference goes wrong. Anything that goes wrong is invalid. Inference is invalid. Any one argument or both the arguments also you can write, because they also mentioned about in question, they have mentioned about perception. This whole process itself is inference. That's what the main point of your answer. Okay. Second, when you reject inference, for example, Charvaka rejecting smoke and fire. Now they are inferring the absence of fire in the presence of smoke. Inferring, imagining, and then rejecting it. So in the process of rejection, they have to accept the inference and infer its invalidity. Okay, so how do you infer? Because the whole process of rejecting the inference is inference itself. Because there is one more point, like what Jainism says, that for Jainism, perception itself is like inference. Because there is doubt, there is clearing up doubt, then it is inference. It's not direct, it is indirect. Because in Jainism also, direct knowledge is only spiritual knowledge. All other knowledge is indirect knowledge. Okay. Paroksh. So this is very important argument that has to be written. Okay, it may take little more space, but this is the very important argument that you have to write. That is, perception is right, and anything that is right is valid source of knowledge. So perception is valid source of knowledge. And the same way, inference is not right, so inference is not valid source of knowledge. And this its whole process itself is inference. Second, to reject the Vyapti, you have to infer it. Okay, because it went wrong today, because there was a smoke without fire, then there will be smoke without fire. That's why you are saying it is going to be wrong, right? So this is also inference. So the another argument is, like in the case of smoke and fire, what Charvaka is doing, because there is no fire but smoke, or there is smoke without fire being there, they are saying then tomorrow there will be smoke, there won't be fire. That's why they are saying it is going to be rejected, right? They already infer that absence of fire in the presence of smoke, that itself is inference. These two arguments are the most important in this part. Okay, third is this, like Jainism says, perception itself is inference. So to reject inference and accept perception, that itself is a Inference. And in the context of perception is also inference. That is like smoke fire. I can see the table. Okay, that means it is there. It exists because before when I have seen the table, it was present. You're getting my point. So important point is every process of perception also includes inference. That aspect. So there are total 3 arguments in this. Okay. One is this argument. If you want to extend, it is 4 arguments. Perception is valid. That is also inference. Inference is invalid. That is also inference. Then cases of any particular case of perception also. You can mention smoke and fire in the example, or table for that matter. The tree is green because it was green yesterday. Tomorrow it will be green. So tree is green. That itself is inference. Okay. And according to Jainism, perception is in itself is very much an inference. Okay. Then you come to conclusion. Again, what would you conclude? Certainly, the process of rejection or the stand of rejection of inference that Charvaka subscribed to is not consistent, and it itself amounts to inference, because to reject inference is to reject to think, and even to think and debate and have any a statement for that matter. If you are saying something also, it's always an inference because it's always an induction. Okay. But again, whenever you write Charvak, always mention in the end. However, the contribution of Charvak can never be ignored, because it is Charvak who brought the spirit of inquiry, brought the critical understanding and questioning approach to Indian philosophy. Only one last statement. It's always better to mention, especially with respect to inference, and even if with respect to the metaphysical aspect. Okay. Now let us see the next question. What does the question say? I'll just read it out. The soul is nothing but conscious body. What are the reasons for Charvak in holding this view? Now you already know the question is about Dehatmavad or Bhuta Chaitanyavad. Okay, simple. Chaitanya Vishishta Deha Eva Atma. Chaitanya Vishishta Deha Eva Atma. The body that is conscious or qualified by conscious itself is Atma or soul. There is nothing other than that. So basically, the soul is nothing but conscious living body is basically Charvaka's rejection of transcendental soul, and Charvaka's establishing that body is soul. That's what the question is. What are the reasons? On what basis they established that? Very straightforward question if you see that way. Okay. Now, introduction. Now here, again, as a matter of habit, we'll put it, then we'll decide on the basis of question. Okay. The soul is nothing but conscious. What are the reasons for Charvaka holding this view? Certainly there will be criticism here, right? Because you have to oppose those reasons. You have to establish that no, you are not right. Anyway, again, now, the soul is nothing but conscious living body. The question is about Dehatmavad. So you can mention Dehatmavad. Okay. And reasons or explanation of Dehatmavad. That's what the question is. So maybe now, because this is a long point, important point, so mostly Dehatmavad should be written very briefly, and reasons or reasons supporting Dehatmavad. Now, what is Dehatmavad? Okay. Now, Dehatmavad is first, is the Okay, by the way, yes, first introduction. In introduction, you mentioned about the same thing. Okay, rejection on pratyaksh is only praman and inference is rejected. So anything that is not perceived by sense organ is rejected by Charvak. Okay, that's it. That's their metaphysics. So metaphysically, anything that is not perceived, anything that is not perceived by sense organs is considered to be non-existing or rejected by Charvak. Okay. You can also mention in the same, because we have to talk about Dehatmavad. Okay. With the same logic, they reject transcendental soul. Transcendental soul is rejected. Generally, as I said, whatever the first point will be there, connecting should be the last statement. It looks better. It is easy. It maintains the flow of the answer. That's why. Dehatmavad. Number one, obviously, transcendental soul cannot be observed or seen or perceived by sense organ, so it is rejected. Okay. The body, according to Charvak, because can be seen, but and consciousness also is seen, but transcendental soul is not seen. So body is conscious living. The soul is nothing but so-called soul is nothing but conscious living body. So-called soul is nothing but conscious living body. Okay. Now, what are the supporting points? Obviously, number one, rejection of inference. Rejection of inference. So, rejection of inference means all the transcendental realities are rejected. All the transcendental realities are rejected by Charvak. Second, okay, they give this explanation of Swabhavad or the explanation of epiphenomena. That is beetle leaf, nut, and lime mixed together giving red tinge. Like that, a particular combination of body gives rise to consciousness. So, soul is not some. So, basically, their belief in Swabhavad or epiphenomena is the explanation number one. Another explanation is rejection of this thing, rejection of transcendental entities, rejection of inference lead to rejection of all transcendental entities, right? Then third is they also reject causation. Okay. So substratum of body is not needed or rejected, which was otherwise considered as soul. Soul being substratum of body. Okay. The driver or the holder of the body, that is also rejected. Then next is they rejected causation, they rejected Vedas, because Vedas mentions the soul and Atma, but they rejected the concept of Veda. Okay. And whatever the mention was there in the Veda is also rejected. So there is no requirement for accepting soul as some transcendental. Now there are another thing. I am fat, I am tall, clearly shows that I am body. That's what they say. This also example also they give. One example is of epiphenomena. Second example is I am tall, I am hungry, I am this thing. So body is hungry. So your body, basically this Chaitanya inside the body itself is Atma. There is no Atma. So another thing is obviously they reject rebirth. So there is no Atma over and above body. Body itself is Atma. So everything starts with rejection of inference. Obviously, you know that. And many different arguments to support that. Criticism, obviously, you know many things now because we already discussed in the previous question. Okay. You reject inference means you're rejecting to think. You're rejecting transcendental entities means you're rejecting causation. You're rejecting, to some extent, you're rejecting science also, because causation is rejected means science also rejected. Okay. What happened? Okay. Anyway, till the time this gets on. So, important point is in the criticism, obviously they rejected uh, transcendental this thing, but number one, they are not able to explain, because I am tall, I am this thing, but then I am happy. It is not body which is happy, something else is happy. They are not able to explain this. Okay. Then law of karma, because you have seen many people who have some birth, since birth only they have some defects. In that case, that never gets explained properly. Okay. We need law of karma, and for law of karma, you need transcendental soul. Then obviously, and like Jainism, which bases whole of their philosophy on soul, criticizes Charvak as the materialist and hedonists, because means if there is no soul, there is no morality according to them. If you remove the soul, then there is no morality. And the reasons also what they are giving, inference rejection, because if you want to criticize the reason itself, you can criticize their rejection of inference, you can criticize their rejection of transcendental this thing, because according to Shankaracharya, Atma is everything, soul is everything, and it is equal to Brahm, and that is at Paramarthic level, that is there, but at the transcendental level. So, through these arguments, what you do is you establish 3-4 points are enough for criticism, and then you conclude. What would you conclude? Obviously, the concept of Dehatmavad bases itself on the rejection of inference, that is the epistemological stand, and hence ends up being on the shaky ground, because all other philosophers, and including most of the Western philosophers, do accept there is something called mind, spirit, or Atma in everyone. Okay. So over and above body, there is general acceptance in the philosophers that there is presence of this thing. However, this certainly questioning approach towards transcendental soul brought in the kind of balancing, or as we always say, that is saving Indian philosophy from dogmatism, ritualism. Okay. So that's enough, more than enough for this particular question's conclusion. Okay. Let's go to the next question. Now, this question is about throw light upon the Charvaka's response to cause and effect relationship. Do you think the view Charvaka hold is logically consistent? Okay. So question is again 10 marker. So demand of the question need to be understood. What is the demand of the question? So the question is about Charvaka's rejection of cause and effect. So you know how Charvaka reject cause and effect, and what does they bring in the place of that? Swabhavad. Okay. So when Charvaka reject that, they come up with the concept of Swabhavad in it. So the question is about Swabhavad, but basically it is based on rejection. Throw light upon Charvaka's response to cause and effect. So basically what is their response is? You start with their response. So their response is that of rejection. Do you think it is logically consistent? So obviously, number one is Charvaka's Charvaka response or rejection, whatever you want to call it, and consistency, or as we always say, consistency test. Right? Charvaka response or consistency test. Okay. Now, and obviously, because there is consistency test, you don't need to write criticism separately, because you are again going to write about whether it is consistent or not, means whether it is basically whatever criticism point that it has. Then you have to give reasons. Number one, okay, how would you introduce? Obviously, you mentioned about Charvak, Pratyaksha Praman and all, and most important, rejection of all transcendental entities because they cannot be perceived. Causation is also rejected by Charvak as transcendental entity. Okay? So, now Charvaka's response. Now, first of all, you mentioned you have to talk about cause and effect relationship is been accepted by all Indian philosophies, or you can mention cause and effect relationship is one of the central to all the Indian philosophies with the separate or with varied versions like Satkaryavad, Asatkaryavad, just like that, etc. Second, now cause and effect, according to Charvak, are transcendental entities and their relation cannot be established as necessary. Okay. Every cause has its own effect is not the causation means every effect has cause is not based on perception because every effect as a cause is a vyapti. Every effect as a cause is a induction and it can only be brought in through inference. So Charvaka's response is like the cause and effect relationship cannot be necessarily maintained. Number two, first of all, you mentioned about briefly cause and effect relationship. They reject that cause and effect relationship being transcendental. So it is, and it cannot be necessary. It cannot be perceived. Then they give explanation of Swabhavad instead of cause and effect. That is, automatic combination of atoms gives rise to things. There is no cause and effect. There is no necessary relationship between the previous and the next. Charvak says automatic combination of atoms gives rise to things. It is not the cause and effect. It's not necessary. It happens by its own nature. Swabhavad is naturalism. Naturalism means things behave according to their own nature. It is not cause or effect. It is just how they are made of and they just gives rise to the next. You can basically what they are saying, you cannot deduce, you cannot induct any universal or any statement which can be treated as that every effect has a cause. Now, unless you say that every effect has a cause, you don't believe in causation. Where Satkaryavad, Asatkaryavad are the variations in a different way. They are different versions in a different context. That context is different. But in this particular context, you know that cause and effect relationship is basically replaced by Swabhavad. Okay, this is like very important, and through this, they will also reject, in a way, they will also reject God and all, but that is not required to be written here. Now Charvaka's consistency. So obviously, whenever Charvaka's consistency is in the question, you talk about their inference rejection itself is inconsistent. Okay, then because inference rejection is inconsistent, their cause and effect relation rejection is also inference. Okay, they rejecting cause and effect, that itself is a inference. So that is also inconsistent. Then obviously it is inconsistent with the science, because science do believe or science do follow this principle of every effect has a cause. Okay. Then third most, along with science also, you can say practical life. Okay. Do follow, in practical life, we do follow this cause and effect relationship. Otherwise, as you know, if you are not programmed to follow cause and effect relationship, our practical life becomes very difficult. So the conclusion is Charvakas are not consistent in rejecting. Okay. And even they're saying that inference leads to invalidity. So they are also establishing a cause and effect relationship. This is one more point, inconsistency point, that is inference and wrong result or invalidity. That itself is a cause and effect relationship, because then every inference leads to invalidity. So wherever there is inference, there is invalidity, because they'll never say that some inference will be valid. They're like, it is untrustworthiness. Okay. Not infallible. Okay. So it will always lead to something. Okay. And the most important thing is practical life, because Charvak also, they would have lived, they also would have followed cause and effect relationship. So their cause and effect relationship is nothing but rejection, that is Swabhavad. Okay. And by the way, Swabhavad also rejected through science. We've already mentioned science, because nowadays we know there are so many other players that happens. It's not just automatic combination of things. Okay. So Charvakas, they are not consistent, or they are inconsistent in rejecting or giving negative response to cause and effect relationship, blah blah blah. And again, the same statement that you know, that however, it is very important to know that Charvaka's contribution to the in fact, although Charvaka might have rejected the cause and effect relationship because of that being considered as transcendental, however, they can certainly be credited with the empirical scientific approach in the Indian philosophy, which otherwise would have succumbed to dogmatism. This can be very good conclusion. Okay. So they can be credited with this scientific approach, critical and empiricistic approach to Indian philosophy, which otherwise would have succumbed to dogmatism. Okay. So that's all for this question. Thank you.